So let's take all this up now with our panel. Washington Examiner chief political correspondent Byron York and host of the Richard Fowler Show, Richard Fowler. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Good to be here with you, Jerry.
Byron, let me start with you. So the economy, we have surging inflation, we have falling real wages, we have dramatically higher interest rates, we have a stock market falling out of bed all the time. This should be very propitious for Republicans in November. But they don't actually seem to have the advantage you might expect in those circumstances. What's going on?
Well, I think it actually will be very propitious for Republicans in November. I think we had a period of time in which a number of Democrats became pretty hopeful that their chances weren't as bad as they seemed to be, and they placed their hopes on being able to use the Supreme Court's decision on abortion against Republicans, and that is going to be a factor in some races, and also on the heightened visibility of former President Trump as he's pursued by the Justice Department and now by the Attorney General of New York and others. They were hoping that that would change the basic dynamic of the race. But the fact is, after we got the latest inflation report, which showed that inflation is high and persistent, I think that the race has evened out again, and the Republicans are still headed for a significant victory. On the Fed, I think the most ominous words spoken by Jerome Powell when he announced the rate increase was, the chances of a soft landing are likely to diminish. They're going to cause a recession, and that's going to shape our politics for a year, maybe more to come.
Richard, that little mild bout of euphoria that Democrats seem to have over the summer, as some of the polling did seem to indicate that they were doing much better, as Byron says, that has rather evaporated with these latest inflation numbers, and now with the increasing reality of dramatically higher interest rates and the probability of recession, doesn't it?
I think it really depends on the race that you're looking at. Once again, this is not a nationwide race, right? We're talking about state by state, district by district, and in each individual district and in each individual state, you see a lot of different races taking place. Case in point, look at what's happening in the state of Pennsylvania. In the state of Pennsylvania, one would have thought that the Republicans would have held on to that seat, but it looks very likely that the current lieutenant governor of that state, John Fetterman, will likely beat Dr. Mahmoud Oz. And so what I'm saying here is not that inflation is not going to have an impact on this race. What I'm saying is that voters are going to go to the ballot box with a grocery store or a trolley of issues, right? Inflation being one of them. I think they're going to go with abortion. I think they're going to go with reproductive freedom. I think they're going to go with democracy. And all these issues together will make up what will be their voting agenda. And I think when it comes to all those issues together, the Republican Party is not as strong as they once were, but we're at the top of the summer.
Byron, just briefly, normally in the midterm elections, the party in the power in the White House loses seats, significant numbers. I think it's only twice really in the last 100 years pretty well that it hasn't happened. If the Republicans don't make significant gains, what will it say?
Well, there's a difference between controlling the House and not controlling the House. So even if they make small enough gains but still control the House, in other words, if they pick up 8 seats, they control the House. And that means the Biden legislative agenda is stopped. It's over for the next 2 years, depending, whether the president runs again. Maybe it gets started back up, but it's over for now. But it will say, if everybody's expecting 25, 30 seats and the victory is much smaller, then it will say Republicans were not as strong as they thought. And of course, if Democrats retain control of the House, I think all of us, certainly I, will have to come out and say, boy, was I wrong.